Okay, so with that, I'd like to welcome Dan Carney. Dan is the Conservation Manager for Marin Municipal Water District. And some of you may have heard him last year, but he's here with an update and on drought impacts on the tree health and the community. So let's welcome Dan.
Laser pointer, cool. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here, and thank you, Jimmy, for setting the stage. I thought I had a lot of depressing slides, but his took the cake. So really, it sounds like he has a lot of the same kind of customers I do. We're on the front lines in water in Marin. Talk to hundreds of people weekly, maybe like yourselves, asking us the same questions about water. Okay, it's a 4-year drought. My landscape's dead. I haven't flushed my toilet in 5 days. I haven't taken a shower. And I'm thinking, well, stay home and water your trees, please. You know, I'm begging them to not let their landscapes die. A lot of misconceptions out there. So what I'd like to do is going to build on what Jimmy was talking about, provide some updates on information, and really focus on the communication piece. And hopefully there'll be some gems in there, just information that you may already know, but that you could share with your customers if you're out in your cities and working, and they're asking you, well, why aren't we cutting down all these trees, you know? So one of the things in this picture that I'll be talking about, I mean, you can probably just intuitively see that. What are those trees doing for that street? Happens to be in Marin, providing wonderful shade. That was a very, very hot day that day, like the gentleman in the movie with the restaurant. You know, it was in the 80s, and under those trees, it was really cool. The ladies encouraged to ride her bicycle. One of the things I'll focus on a little bit is something that I wasn't really aware of. It's called ground level ozone. It's the part of smog that is the really damaging part to our health. I've heard of ozone before up in the upper atmosphere. It protects us from solar rays. It's good. When it's down on the ground on a hot summer day and it's reacting with the fumes coming out of those gas tanks and exhaust, it turns into ground level ozone, which if any of you have asthma or know anybody that has asthma, about 40% of our population are children actually that have asthma. Very, very sensitive to ground level ozone. The research I was reading, the doctors describe it as getting a sunburn inside your lungs. So serious business. So I'll show you some interesting research that NASA did, but for every degree basically that those trees help cool that pavement, the amount of ozone goes down. So a lot of important values. Let's see here. There's got to be an arrow for me to push. There it is. So these fellows, this wonderful old juniper tells a great story about the history of rainfall and drought just from reading the rings. And I know you probably can't see it in detail, but you can see there's some real fat years and some real lean years. There wasn't a lot of growth put on. And so that's about a little more than 1,000-year record of rainfall, because one of the things I think that upsets people and gets them kind of to overreact, as was described by Jimmy, is, you know, our memories, I can speak for myself, are pretty short, right? I don't remember necessarily what was written about 100 years ago. Certainly not 1,000 years ago. I remember what happened this week or yesterday. So when it's dry for 4 years, even if there's water in the reservoirs, people read the news and they're just freaking out like it's never happened before. And in fact, it may not have happened to them before. So here's a 100-year record of rainfall in California. Right now, this 4-year drought is the third driest period in the history of California. And let's see if I can get the laser pointer here and show you, because there's an interesting pattern in here that isn't necessarily obvious. Let's see. Starting back in the late 1800s, right, up till now, there's a real division here. If you look at between 1900 and, say, 1935, that's the average. That's the running 11-year average right there. A lot of dry years. Seriously dry years. And I think, what was it? The driest year was 1924. Right in there. But then look what happened after the 30s and all the way up till recently, a lot of wet years, right? Well, this is what I find really interesting. Someone pointed out to me, if you think about it, when did our cities develop? When were most of the houses built? When were the freeways put in? When was the population increase? Right? It was all during these wet years. And historically, if you look over that 1,000-year period, this is very, very unusual to have a long wet period like that. So we've all pretty much throughout our entire lives, everybody you know, everybody you talk to, has lived in a pretty wet environment in California, kind of unusual. So that helps me anyway understand why we developed the way we did, why we built the reservoirs and the pipelines and all the infrastructure in our cities. We had plenty of water, right? We didn't think back 100 years, or really think that might be a repeat of it, although history would tell different. That's just, we live within our lifetime. So here's the end of the world stuff, right? Climate change. I don't know, everybody's got a different opinion about that. This is the science. The forests will dry up, the fires will burn, the oceans will disappear, the glaciers will melt. It's not a lot of good news. Like I say, that's end of the world kind of stuff. So what's gonna save us? There's not a lot we can do about that, right? There's some things we can do. We can control how we respond, but we can't control that. We've screwed up. This is just the Bay Area. We've screwed up our water. We're just watching a thing about the gold rush. The 49ers, 1849. We still are dealing with mercury and sediment from the gold rush, right? It was all washed down the river because they blasted the hills away to get the gold. We got diazinon. We got all kinds of different things in our soils because of our management. That's something we can do something about, right? What do trees do? Obviously, they'll intercept the rainfall, improve the infiltration, reduce the runoff of these chemicals. Of course, we can use fewer chemicals as well. So that's not good news. Jimmy put up a similar one here, the Palmer Drought Severity Index. The redder it is, drier it is. You can't see it, but right around in the Bay Area, there's a few spots. I'm embarrassed to say Marin is one of them where we're above average in storage, only because of the way the rain came in December and January and filled our reservoirs. Could change tomorrow. And really dreary, NASA has found a way to use satellites to measure the change in the Earth's gravitational field depending on how much water is in the ground. I don't know how they do it. Blows my mind. But look over this period of 12 years. This is just last year. The redder it is, the drier it is. Where does all that wonderful agriculture get their water? Mostly out of the groundwater, right? That's the majority of it. It's not surface water. It's been overdrafted, and because we've been in this long period of drought, it hasn't gotten refilled. Nothing to fill up the bathtub. Bad news. So what's going to save us? This is going to save us, right? And I found the greenest, happiest tree I probably could possibly find a picture of, just to say, to save the day. This is something that you all do that we can all work on together in the face of it not raining, except for right this very minute. We can do something to address these many environmental disasters, some of which are brought upon us ourselves, and some of which happened just because of nature. So they store carbon, right? They give us the oxygen, they exchange the carbon dioxide, many other different gases, and they, down into the soil, into the roots. That's a really good thing if you're trying, to counteract the increase in greenhouse gases that we are all trying to counteract right now. So here are some of the economic benefits. I'm sure you've seen this as just a refresher, and again, I hope you can take some of these little facts and figures, and when you are talking to your bosses or your politicians or your customers, just have some talking points, because I find that's very helpful. It's not that people aren't necessarily receptive to hearing these things; it's not part of their everyday life. Talked about the home values a little bit. The businesses, there's been quite a bit of research that's gone into, if you've got a business district that has a thriving urban forest, what's going to happen? People are going to come, they're going to stay, they're going to shop, they're going to return, because it's just nice, especially during the summer. It's really nice. The stormwater, that's huge. I don't know how many of you are dealing with your stormwater agencies in terms of the new stormwater compliance permits. Getting pretty advanced. A lot of attention now to urban landscape that wasn't there before. That's the thing. In fact, I've got, at our agency, we put out a grant to transform a lot of areas from lawns into urban forests for that very reason. We've got, it's not diazinon, but a variation of diazinon is very high in our creeks, and all the creeks that go into San Francisco Bay. Got to reduce some of that stormwater runoff from irrigation, the dry weather runoff, and the air pollutants. Talk a little bit more about that with the ozone in a second. And here it is. So I know you can't read that. I don't expect you to. But in the Bay Area, and I'll explain this, basically what the Union for Concerned Scientists, you may be familiar with that, it's an international organization. If you've ever asked yourself, okay, I know trees cool the air, and I know when it's cooler, you don't get that ground level ozone, right? It feels better, but you also don't get the ground level ozone, which happens from the heat, the sunlight, and the emissions. But how much? How much does it help? You know, so what these folks did is they worked with NASA and they did a model, and they found out that for every degree Fahrenheit that you reduce the temperature, and these are some areas in the Bay Area, for example, you reduce the ground level ozone by 2 parts. It's 2 parts per billion. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's huge. 2 parts per billion for every degree you reduce it. So in the film, what did the gentleman say? He said it was 80 degrees outside and probably 60-something inside. That's huge. You know, if you're interested in having, if you have respiratory problems, that's really important. But even if you just want to be healthier, if you've got that tree and you've reduced it 10 degrees, right, you've reduced it 20 parts per billion, that's fantastic. So if you do that over your whole community, you bring the temperature down, you interrupt the sunlight, because the trees are using the sunlight, right, for photosynthesis. That sunlight isn't reacting with all the exhaust fumes from cars. That's what most of the nitrogen comes from. You're doing yourself a huge favor. Now, on the economic side, and this is maybe for the politicians you work with, they took it a step farther. Not only how much ozone, but who cares? What does it matter in terms of money and health? Well, they found that in the Bay Area, for example, in California in general, I'm sorry, somewhere between 200 and 700,000 cases of respiratory illness would be reduced for every 2% reduction, or 2 parts per billion reduction. That's huge. And look at the dollars. Somewhere between 100 million and almost $2 billion a year in health costs. These are people going to the emergency room. These are long-term illnesses. These are medications. Have any of you, I know I grew up down in San Diego, and there were times, I think it was in the 70s, where we would have bad air days. You weren't supposed to go outside. You weren't even supposed to go to school. Did anybody experience that in LA? Yeah? Unbelievable. Well, this is why. Nobody ever told me that, but it's this ground level ozone. You go out, you're supposed to close your windows, not exercise, and what have you. So, you know, I'm sorry to go on about it so much, but to me it was kind of an aha moment here and a revelation. It makes a lot of sense now, I think about it. So here's kind of an overview again of all these benefits, and these are talking points, like I said, I think that are important. This one little flyer up here I put from, this was the Pacific Northwest group, did a study in Portland, and they looked at hundreds of different women in different neighborhoods with different amounts of trees near them within a certain number of feet of their homes. And they were able to correlate this scientifically using statistics to show that the birth weight of these women improved. In other words, the children were healthier. They had better birth weight if they were in an environment with trees. And this was a highly scientific study. It's not conclusive, but still, it's amazing, right? So not only do you get a lot of these values, the property values, the health values in general, but your families, if you're interested in having your children and your families be healthy, that's pretty persuasive to me. I know I work with a lot of folks that, because it's Marin, money's no object, but when I talk about their families and their health, all of a sudden, they care, right? It starts to make sense to them. It's something that means something personally to them. So I've talked a lot about communication. This gentleman had a way with words. I think it's so important, right? Because I can stand here and talk all day, but who am I talking to? Are you guys, does it make any difference to you? I don't know. But who are your customers? And there was a fantastic study nationwide, about 12 different major cities in the United States. And this was about water in particular, but it's still important. And what they did is they surveyed thousands of people about their attitudes about climate change, right? So is the world getting hotter? I don't know. Is it because of humans? Is it because of this or that? Everybody has different ideas. But one thing that they found that was in common was, and it's a little squished there, but about 20% of your folks are just going to be gung-ho. They're like, what can I do to help you, right? Plant the trees, I'll water them, I'll take care of them. They're just on fire for it, the first adopters. And then another 44% will support you. And another 13%, well, okay, whatever, I'll do it. You know, I'll spend the money, I'll put the hose out there and water it, or call a tree company. So you got about 74% or 77% of your folks, 3/4, who are going to go along with you. In other words, they understand there's an issue with climate change for whatever reason. They understand that the urban forest is important. And this goes across a lot of issues, not just water, not just urban forest, but this is kind of a general profile of who your customers are. And then there's those, I love it, the 8%, the pessimists. This was really a revelation to me. No matter what audience you're in, no matter who you're talking to, there's going to be eight people, 8% of the people there that just don't care what you say. They don't. You can throw all the facts in the world. You can tell them that they're going to die tomorrow. They won't care. So don't waste your time, is what the message was. But the people are there. They're receptive. They're really concerned about climate change and how they can help. So that, to me, this is the positive part of the presentation, right? And so I thought, and this is an infographic from the city of Melbourne. I'm sure you've all heard about that 10-year millennial drought. I thought, well, we're in a 4-year drought, and it's bad. But why not find out what folks who've really been through hell, did? And it's just fascinating what they did. They spent $6 billion on sunk costs, capital costs on a desal plant. They're going to spend $700 million a year in interest payments. Guess how much water they've produced? 0. Not one drop. Probably never will. It's too expensive to operate the desal plant. But what they did is they invested in recycled water like crazy, and I know Nelda's going to talk about recycled water a little bit later. They improved their recycled water for their agriculture, so they're not wasting anything. They did incredible things with stormwater capture. So when you get a little rain like today, every drop of that gets channeled through curb cuts into planters. Conservation went crazy. Everybody got a rain tank. Everybody put in gray water. And they got through it. Just barely, because then it started to rain. But they get the message in Melbourne, and I look to them because they're leaders, as they had to be, for one thing, but they're smart about it. They know the temperature's going up. They know that development's going to keep happening, that people are going to keep moving there. They know that even though they have literally 12 years worth of storage in reservoirs, they've invested in that, that's not enough, right, unless they are smarter. So what they're going to do, because their trees were unbelievably stressed in this 10-year drought, right? They're going to lose 25–30% of their trees early, right? They're going to die early because they were so stressed. They've now dedicated the funds and the plans to almost double their urban forest. That's their response to their drought, right? They get that it's going to cool their cities. They get that it reduces the runoff, and they're going to use recycled water, and they're going to use stormwater best management practices. I think that's pretty impressive as a story to tell people. When they talk about Australia and they had to build the desal plant, well, the desal plant didn't save them, right? It was doing these smart things and investing in their infrastructure and their urban forest in particular that is going to save them. So these are some of the best management practices that they use. These are photos from Austin, Texas, but any city can use them. Get that water infiltrated. Don't let it run off into the river and cause those pollution problems, right? Get it in the curb cuts you can see in the... I'm just curious, how many people do that in their cities? Do you have design standards for curb cuts, impervious pavement, or pervious pavement and things like that? Okay. I'm always curious because I'm real interested in it. I hear about it, but I don't see a lot of it happening unless it's, new development or something. But good deal. So that's what they did in Australia. Some other basics there. I know Larry's going to talk a lot in detail about this in terms of, how do you target which trees to look at and priorities and so forth. So this is out of Colorado State. Obviously your new trees, keep them going. Any trees that are vulnerable, you want to prioritize those. Things that you already know. The thing I found interesting, and you may know this very well, is that trees that have less in other words, if you fertilize less, right, and, fewer nutrients in the soil, those trees are going to be much more drought tolerant because the tree, I guess it's called optimum allocation. The tree is going to allocate more of its biological resources to building roots, to getting what few nutrients are there in that poor soil. If you overfeed it, especially during a drought, it's going to put on leaves and branches that are not going to survive very well under low water conditions. And here's the happy note. You've heard of El Nino. So this is a cool little illustration there. If any of you are weather nerds like I am, if you're watching the weather patterns, you'll see down here just south of Mexico, off of Mexico there's just constant storms going on right now, just raining cats and dogs all the time, all the time. So this goes back, I think, what, May up through July here, and you can see that warmer than usual water, excuse me, is moving up a little bit, right? It's almost the tip of Baja California there. And it's 85 to 90% probability, the models say, that in fact that El Nino is going to make a difference. We don't know for sure we'll get more rain, but this is our best hope. This is the best hope in a really long time. And so if you, I just thought this was kind of cool that you can see that warmer than average water moving northward. So if the predictions hold true, October, November, December, even on into January, February could be very good months for us in terms of water. Having been in the water business a long time, I don't get excited about that because it may or may not happen. And even if it does happen, and I hope this is true for all of you too, we still have to take care of our water. We still have to take care of our trees. We still have to follow these best management practices. I say rain or shine, you know, and that's something that that's a message I use a lot. I talk to people and I say, whoops, I'm not getting my picture here. I wonder where it went. Anyway, the message I've been giving them is basically your landscape, your trees are worth the water. They're worth it. I mean, we're lucky to have any water at all. A lot of places in the world don't. But don't let your trees die. Take care of them. Don't waste anything, right? Don't keep flushing your toilet just because you have fun doing it. Don't overwater your trees just because you think they'll like it. Use water judiciously, but please use it. You know, and use it well and use it wisely, and your urban forests are going to be one of the top beneficiaries of that. We all will. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much.